There it is. Quiz.
Tell Darren I keep putting this thing out backwards. I'm glad it's not a clip.
I mean, I don't know board.
Okay, we're going to start in 1 minute.
Oh, boy.
Oh, yeah.
Uno momento, huh? Okay.
I was on the Y board for 6 years.
Yeah, she got 2 CDs and 2 DVDs.
It was a long time ago, but it was pretty
Marilyn
good
told
stuff.
us that CDs, and we assumed she meant
I
here.
appreciate that.
So, while we're working.
Did you get a hold of the
No, he walked in,
See you
handed me
guys
the
running
car keys, and I
around.
walked out. So, no.
You haven't changed.
Sprinting.
And says exactly how to do a roll call
Nice
vote
job
in the
defending
event
his
we need
position
to.
last night. You really
Just
went to
create
bat.
a
I'm
cheat sheet
sorry
maybe on
to
this.
see that.
This is a
So
Christmas card.
if there's a cancellation soon, you come back.
Don't worry, everything is cool.
He's on a roll. Got a
I
great
heard from a lot of people last night, and everything is cool.
Okay, with your permission, I'm going to call the December meeting, regular meeting of the Grand Traverse County Parks and Recreation Commission meeting to order. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our best wishes go to Marilyn. I understand she's pretty sick and can't be with us tonight. So, Kim, could you please call the roll?
I actually don't have the sheets, so I'm just going to go off the name tags tonight. I apologize.
That works for us.
In the rush to pack everything, that was forgotten, so I apologize. Bob Karstens.
Here.
Peter Dorn.
Here?
Bill Dorier.
Here.
Rebecca Cass. Here. Harry Leapsight.
Here.
Christine Maxbauer.
Here.
Kevin McEllier.
Here.
And Dave Taylor.
Here. Okay, we do have a quorum. Public comment. We have 2 public comments. If you'd like, we have 1 member of the public out there eagerly awaiting to say something to us. So.
Oh, Carl,
yeah,
come and
okay.
introduce yourself.
Yeah, come and introduce yourself. My name is Carl Brown. I'm a county road commissioner, and I'm going, I believe, to be replacing Dave this next year.
Oh, well, there's good news and bad news. We're losing Dave and we're getting Carl.
Well, yeah, it could be either way, I guess. So, anyway, Dave just invited me to stop in, just see what goes on here, so that when I jump in, I'm a little more aware of what's going on. So,
Terrific, Carl.
that's why I'm here tonight.
Well, we're sorry for losing Dave, I guess, but we're glad that you could step forward and join us, and we'll do our best to keep you amused and and excited.
All righty.
Thanks, Carl.
All right. Are there any additions to the agenda? There are no special orders of business. There is a consent calendar, and the consent calendar is to receive and file the 2011 budget report, receive and file the performance measures report, receive and file the rules committee updates, receive and file the scholarship committee update, and receive and file the Parks Commission meeting per diem report, as well as to approve the minutes of the November 17, 2011 Parks and Recreation Commission meeting. Anybody can take anything off the consent calendar if they'd like. Christine?
Mr. President, I do have a little bit of an update for the Scholarship Committee. If you would like to address that.
Sure, if there's no objection from any of the members, why don't
I
you
mean,
go right ahead?
I can pull that or not.
So why don't you do it right now unless somebody objects? Okay?
I don't object, I have something I want to pull.
Wow, that's
Do we want to
different.
continue with that first?
Okay, what do you want to pull,
I
Bill?
want to pull the minutes from the November 17th meeting.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right, anything else to be pulled? If not, Christine, could you comment on the Scholarship Committee?
Yes, and I have not updated the Scholarship Committee on this, but we did have our last meeting, and we talked about informing the TCAPs and asking for an email blast, and I wanted to let everybody know that I met with the superintendent of schools yesterday morning, and it took all of 30 seconds to get him to agree to put out an email blast for grade school kids for our Flying Gull Scholarship.
Wonderful.
That's it.
Great. Sounds good. Anything else about the consent calendar? We're ready for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Moved by Karstens,
The consent calendar has the minutes pulled?
as the minutes pulled,
Okay,
as amended.
support.
Support by Elliott. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, the minutes of the November 17 meeting have been pulled from the consent calendar by Mr. Dorier. Would you like to comment on that,
Yeah,
Bill?
I just had one comment, one correction. Back on item L, the second paragraph states, Max Bauer stated, "The Board of Commissioners has requested that the Parks and Recreation Commission reconsider closing Twin Lakes." That's not what she said, and that's, what this infers that there was an action by the Board of Commissioners, a request, and that's not what occurred. The way I remember it I think she said a few commissioners have asked her to reopen this.
Is that,
Commissioner Dwyer is exactly correct.
all right, could we
And
have,
I appreciate the catch.
can you see that that correction is made, Kim? All right, any other comments on the minutes? Can I get a motion
To approve them as
Move for
amended, or?
to approve the minutes as amended?
I'll make that motion.
All right, Karstens moves, Dorier seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries.
I'm sorry,
Sure.
who seconded that?
I did, Dorier.
Dorian.
Director's report. Mr. Director, please report.
Sorry about that. We're trying to, with Marilyn being out, we're missing a document that we typically have for our meetings for roll call votes. So if we have a roll call vote tonight, take it easy on Kim and I, please.
Okay, no roll call votes tonight, we forgot the form.
First thing I want to discuss with the Parks and Recreation Commission, give an update, is on the Parks and Recreation Network. The Parks and Recreation Network met for the first time on December 8th, and the Parks and Recreation Network, if you recall, is a continuing conversation with Parks and Recreation programs as well as municipalities that offer Parks and Recreation opportunities to the community to continue moving towards collaborative efforts. Our first network meeting was December 8th, and we had kind of a small showing of potential members of the Parks and Recreation Network. And we had very strong representation from TCAPS, the City of Traverse City, Grand Traverse Land Conservancy, TART Trails, as well as East Bay Townships. We had very strong municipal involvement. Unfortunately, we didn't have a tremendous number of participants from the Parks and Recreation programs, things like things like GTHA or T-Bays, Little League, American Legion, etc. And actually, would it be good if I clarified the card that's going around is for Russ Clark, correct?
Yes, that's a Christmas
Good idea.
card for
Going,
Russ Clark.
I didn't start
Doesn't
it.
have
I think
anything
Pete
on it.
started it, but I don't think the message got
not
sent
that I
right.
won't wish someone Merry Christmas, but
So, the Parks and Recreation Network met, and we really discussed what's going to get the Parks and Recreation Network going, and what's really going to set us aside. What can we put our efforts into while we have a lot of momentum? And we discussed two things. We discussed kind of almost a bifurcated mission where we had the Parks and Recreation providers would discuss items that were germane to them, talking about how they could collaborate to more effectively do background checks, coaches trainings, volunteer recruitment, etc. The other thing that we talked about is how the municipalities, county, city, townships, as well as TCAPs, they'd be categorized there as well, could work together to utilize each other's facilities, or how we could reach out and how we could collaborate with those Parks and Recreation program directors. So out of that meeting, we kind of split things, and the lowest hanging fruit that we could come up with was, and this is what we found from the needs assessment that was done, is how our network could create a new website that's a comprehensive go-to site for all recreation opportunities in Grand Traverse County and the TCAP school area. So that would include any, if you looked at it in the fall, it would show when the registration is, and first games would be going for T-Bays. It would show registration for GTHA. It would talk about any special events, maybe through the senior center. It'd talk about any events that were going on in any of the townships, or swim lesson registration and whatnot. We really wanted to focus our effort there and get involved right now with possibly with the Chamber of Commerce, as well as Traverse Area Association of Realtors, Because in looking at housing, house listings, they always mention how far homes are from the TARP. Well, why not promote that? With someone that's looking to come to our community, why not promote this opportunity, this collaborative effort to folks that are interested in our community? So we're working on that, as well as working with having some discussions amongst the municipalities about how we can work together, whether it's different types of partnerships, mainly between school. Right now, what we're talking is talking about some unique opportunities between the school district as well as the county and the city. And then how we can expand that out and include East Bay Township and Garfield Township and the other surrounding townships. So they're very much discussions, and I will keep this commission informed with what's going on. Any questions about the Parks and Recreation Network?
Just, they call, most of the groups that are meeting in conjunction with the Grand Vision are also called networks. And so are we to think of this as kind of part of the Grand Vision?
As you know, the collaborative effort was led through a consultant via North Sky.
Right.
And the last meeting that we had, we said, how can we continue this conversation? Because when we were done with our consultant that our grant paid for, we certainly weren't done with this task. North Sky suggested that because Parks and Recreation is not specifically addressed in the Grand Vision, and it's not specifically addressed in Grand Reimagining or other major endeavors that are going on in the community, and because each of those are moving towards this network model, that the Parks and Recreation Network should be created very similar to the networks that are within the Grand Vision. That way, our group has the capability of seamlessly entering into discussion down the road with Grand Vision, entering in discussion with some of the other major activities that are going on in the community. So that was deliberate.
It's a natural fit.
And it was suggested by North Sky, who's got some involvement with each of those different processes.
Thank you.
Anything else on the network? Any comments on the website idea? I think it's pretty good.
I think it's an excellent start. Hopefully, more will evolve.
We're hoping so as well.
Okay, Jason?
The next item on my report is just a reminder to the commission that as part of our 2012 budget, we discussed increasing pool memberships, increasing the cost for lessons, pool drop-in fees, water exercise fees, pool rental fees, as well as the rental fees at Twin Lakes. I just want to remind the commission that those are all going to take effect starting January 2nd.
Jason?
Yep.
I have gotten some feedback from commissioners on the fee increases. Would you like me to do this now, or shall we speak at a later date?
I'd be happy to. Why don't we speak at a later date?
All right.
Are they particularly involving Twin Lakes?
No.
Okay. Yeah, why don't we speak at a different date? That would be great. The next item is Parks and Recreation Commission appointments. I just wanted to let the commission know that on December 1st and 6th, the ad hoc committee to interview candidates for Parks and Recreation Commission met and interviewed several candidates. I think there were 8 candidates for positions on the Parks and Recreation Commission. And the ad hoc committee suggested that Scott Robertson, there's an error on my report, Scott Robertson, David Grams, and Rodetta Heron be appointed to the 3 seats that are open on the Parks and Recreation Commission. Unfortunately, that means that the seat currently occupied by Dr. Leapsight, his term will end on December 31st. So from a director's perspective, I wanted to thank you, Harry, for your service to our commission, and let our commission as a whole know that we will see 3, and it sounds like now 4 new members of our Parks and Recreation Commission starting in January.
If I could add, Harry, if you could, we did speak briefly, but our hope, I'm sure everybody's hope, is that you can continue in various capacities, Rules Committee perhaps, and other committee activities on the rec board.
Absolutely. I'm open to do anything as far as the commission, if they have special projects and things like that, and they want somebody to go tackle it, I like to do those kind of things, but it's up to the commission and whatever their desires is.
Great, thanks. Jason?
The next item on my report is just reminding the commission of the organizational meeting to be held January 19th at 6 p.m. here at this facility. And some items that we'll be discussing at that point is election of the Parks and Rec Commission President, Vice President, and Secretary, as well as appointments to the Rules Committee, Scholarship Committee, NER Advisory Committee, and a T-Bay's ex officio member. We'll also be setting the schedule for February 2012 through January 2013.
Jason, since I went to the T-Bay meeting, you might want to hold up on the appointment of the commissioner to that because they are changing their bylaws.
Okay.
I don't know what the end result is. I probably won't find out because I won't be able to get back there, but there was quite a bit of discussion about it. So I would recommend that you hold up on that particular appointment until you find out finally what they wish to do.
Great. I appreciate you letting us. I appreciate you reporting that back to us.
Well, I was going to report, but later on, so I'm a little out of order here, but I just wanted you to be aware of that.
That's great, and I'll get with Jennifer Jorgensen and
Absolutely.
find out the best course. And so we may not be making an appointment ex officio to T-Days. And then finally, something that's kind of exciting, at a meeting that I had with Commissioners McEllier and Doran, we discussed the opportunity for our Parks and Recreation Commission to get together and network with other Parks and Recreation commissioners throughout Grand Traverse County. And just as an opportunity for a meet and greet, kind of figuring out where each of the different commissions are at within their respective organizations. And the idea kind of blossomed into an opportunity for our commissioners, for all the commissioners in the county to get together and kind of meet each other and talk about different endeavors that they're all working on right now, and how we can add kind of an educational piece to that. So I contacted the Michigan Recreation and Park Association, and they're very interested in coming up to the Civic Center to teach a workshop. The details of that information are forthcoming, and it looks like the best date would be January 24th, which is a Tuesday. Likely I'm anticipating this meeting will start about 1:30 and go till about 4:30. And we've got it planned, it's just that I'm not quite sure of the content. There may be some costs, and I'm working on possible sponsorship from a local organization to sponsor this event. So could be a great opportunity both for networking, talking about local parks and recreation issues, as well as an educational piece about current trends or current opportunities in the parks and recreation industry. So more information will be coming out to each of you, and this will definitely be discussed. You'll receive information before our January 19th meeting because the tentative date is January 24th at this point.
If I could just add to that, Kevin and I meet to set the agenda with Jason every month. And at this month's, that's the meeting that Jason was talking about. And Kevin and I and Jason envisioned part of our role as trying to facilitate cooperation and communication among all the people that, like ourselves, who volunteer to try to better parks and recreation. There are about, according to Russ Clark's matrix, which he distributed a few months ago, there's probably over 83 people just like us who are on different parks boards. Some are elected, some are appointed. The community as a whole spends probably close to $4 million annually and on parks and recreation facilities and activities. And so that's why we thought it would be a good idea to try to put faces on the different boards and on us to those boards and try to facilitate dialogue. The directors have done that pretty much through the network that they've created, but I think at the board level it would also be beneficial. Gary?
I was going to say something.
Before you threw your pen?
Yeah, before I threw it.
Throw your pen at me.
Yeah, that's okay. I'll pick it up in a minute. What I found out in going Googling and doing other things and everything else. Typically in the Parks and Recreation business, any of the boards or commissions have about 25% of their total time they spend involvement with other boards and other commissions. I don't know if we're striving for that level or not, or whatever it is, but if we are closely approaching that this is the ideal figure amongst all the various groups from all over the United States that I can find.
It's interesting information. We're way below that percentage. Anything further, Jason?
Nothing further from my report.
All right, any questions of Jason on the report or other matters? All right, the main event, the approval of the Civic Center Master Plan. Mr. Jones.
Well, first and foremost, did everyone receive a copy of the plan, either a hard copy in their packet or received a separate email copy?
Yes.
And everybody's had a chance to review it and understands it word for word, correct? Shoot. All right. Well, in your packet, or actually in a separate email from your packet, for those of you that received via email, there was a secondary supplement, I guess, to our packet, which is the Civic Center Master Plan as drafted thus far by Russ Clark. If you flip through the packet, it's a very common format for this master plan. It starts out talking about a little bit of the history of the park. It talks about the current amenities at the park and the process we went through in order to get the relevant data. And then there's section 6. Does anybody need a copy of that? Great. We have 2 here. And then there's section 6. And section 6 is the section where it's discussed about future or about different opportunities that Russ has identified and different priorities that the Parks and Recreation Commission has already discussed. I think section 6 starts on page number 19 for those of you that are reviewing it. And it identifies the chain link fencing, community events, the removal of chain link fencing, community event sign, front street landscape, multi-purpose sports field, screen maintenance, talks about a variety of different topics that were identified through public input from Parks and Recreation Commissioners and things that we need to do to ensure the long-term success of the Civic Center. Russ has requested that, and let me step back for a moment. There was one paragraph that Russ left out that he wanted me to let the commissioners know about. There was heavy discussion at one of our one of the public input meetings for pickleball courts to be on the south side of the property near the sector bathrooms. And Russ said he omitted that paragraph. So there will be a paragraph.
By mistake.
By mistake. There will be a paragraph in the final version of this, if it's approved by the commission. There will be a paragraph talking about the importance of 4 pickleball courts. I believe it was 4 pickleball courts at the south end of the Civic Center. So that will be included in the final document. He meant to include that here. And then Russ is currently working on the probable cost estimates that we've discussed that were identified in your packet. And I've actually requested from him that be a separate document that kind of goes hand in hand with this master plan, because depending on the implementation schedule of this plan or any prioritization, some of the probable cost estimates may not be accurate, and it would be worrisome to me that some people may have that probable cost estimate be the final cost for that, and depending on the resources that we can put towards that, some of those probable cost estimates may differ. So I've asked Russ to make that a separate document. Couple other items. There have been 2 people, and I received these 2 emails today from the city of Traverse City. Would you take one? This handout is 1 page. There's an email on the front and an email at the back. One from the city Parks and Recreation Commission chairperson, and one from the chair of the City Planning Commission, discussing removal of fence, and I think there is some discussion on there about the the Garfield Street entryway, and there's a photo there that you can see of the bus. So this this document as it stands does have 2 supporting pieces of documentation from the public stating that they'd like to see the removal of the fence, as well as possible changes to the entrance to the Civic Center from Garfield. Ideally for Russ, he would like to have this commission tentatively approve or approve this document, understanding that the paragraph about pickleball courts will be added in the final documentation if this commission's comfortable. And that would be my recommendation.
Bob?
Okay. Your conversation, it does mention pickleball courts already, but he's going to add another paragraph to what he's already said, correct?
Correct. The future pickleball courts that you see on page 24, those are identified to be put in where our former tennis courts are.
Right.
Our former tennis courts are our current facilities management parking lot. So they park a variety of their fleet of vehicles as well as some of their other implements on former pickleball courts. Of course, that identification of those future pickleball courts is contingent on facilities management moving to another portion of our facility, or ideally moving to another county-owned facility.
Christine?
Mr. President, I agree that the cost estimates ought to be separate. And we do need the addition of the paragraph on pickleball courts. My question is, should we simply defer this to the next meeting until we get the addition of the pickleball court paragraph? I mean, we could take, quite honestly, I'm comfortable going ahead and approving this, but
Or I guess we could approve it subject to our approval.
there you
of
go.
the-
Thank you.
Of the other paragraph from Russ.
Thank you. Okay, I would move for approval of the Civic Center Master Plan as presented, omitting the cost estimate document and tentative approval.
Subject to our
Subject to
approval.
our approval of the pickleball court paragraph.
Sounds great. I support that, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Max Bowers, supported by McEllier. Discussion?
Yes, I have a point or two. When I looked at the public inputs summary here, it only appeared that the people that was in that meeting on 22 February 2011 had plugged that information in. I have with me another beautiful survey that covers exactly the same ground in much greater detail from T-Bays. And I think that what we should do, if we're going to base on what we have or don't have, or 0, 1, or 2, or 3, or 4, that we get at least a couple other surveys to compare it against, to try to, because we serve all people, we don't serve a particular group or any particular thing. I mean, that's only one of our properties that we're talking about here. And it would be nice to know what the other people were thinking, because I know there's differences already between the two surveys.
Are you saying T-Bays did a survey about the Civic Center?
They did actually a survey which covered the activities. We have the fields, the courts, and different things over there. Exactly, I have the thing with me. And it's, I was rather amazed. It was pretty extensive, and what they did, they sent that out to other people that wasn't at the meeting. So all I am saying is that, why can't we do something similar to that and get their input? Because if we base all of our thinking on approving this plan, and only the people that attended the February 22nd meeting,
I understand.
you know, I'm just saying we're going from a small audience, and yet we've got the whole county that we have to consider. That's all I'm looking to try to do here.
Becca?
Didn't we have that public input meeting where, everyone put the stickers on? There was how many, that's what I'm not understanding. Didn't we already pool a large group of people back 4 or 5 months ago?
We did that invitation was open to everyone in the public. We identified and sent invitations to all of our typical users, or all of our past users that we have records for from parks, or previous users, I should say, of the Civic Center property.
Christine?
I think what I'm hearing from Commissioner Leapsight is, you know, yeah, the people that show up have the loudest voice or the most impact, but perhaps not necessarily now, but at some point in time, couldn't we do more outreach to people who were not aware that we had a public input session? And Commissioner Leapsight, correct me if I'm wrong, what you're asking for is for us to look further down the road?
Well, my only concern was I looked at the tallied amounts there, and then I looked at what this other survey that they had just completed over in T-Base. And what I found out that there was just a lot of questions, and the difference was that they did it with called a Survey Monkey. I never heard of that thing before, but they went out, they said it was available on the website or whatever that we've been talking about, and anybody could take this thing, and there was a certain period of time to put their thoughts and ideas and everything into it. And I thought that's great, because we do an awful lot of stuff on the internet now, and find out if there's any other feelings out there, in the sense, before we pour concrete around this thing here. I mean, that's all I'm looking to do, is try to get more people involved in the process.
Bob Jessup.
I kind of think like you do in terms of, I was disappointed at the turnout that did perform the survey, and I thought that decisions should be made on a broader spectrum of participants, but at the same time, I think part of Mr. Clark offered to do all of these planning work that he put into it, and with no charge, and so there was a limited time span to extend that public input period, given. So that was another element. So I kind of think like you do in terms of wanting more public input to guide decisions, but so we're kind of in a tight spot here, I feel a little.
Could you pass that survey down if you have it there? I'm just curious if it's something I've seen
Mine,
before.
the one I got with me?
Yeah, the one that T-Base did?
Sure, I'll be glad
Let
If you don't mind.
let me interject here. What we do as planning, as commissioners on the Parks and Recreation Department, what you do as drain commissioner, what you do as county commissioner, what you do as a road commissioner is make decisions on the basis of incomplete information.
You're right.
Because if you wait for all of the information, no decision will ever be made. This is a plan. This is
what I was gonna
not.
say.
It's a living document.
Thank you.
It's a living document, it's a document. If somebody might come up and say, no, you had an error in your facts, well, then we'll have to change it. Or you mistook what I was proposing, then we might want to change it. So I would be against waiting. I think there's a lot of good stuff in here that we can start implementing right away or talk about it on the next agenda item. And if we wait for all the information that comes in, ladies and gentlemen, we'll just wait. That's all we'll do. Christine.
That's it. This is the.
Well, I didn't hear Commissioner Leapsight say wait. I heard him say let's do more outreach, which we certainly can. And I agree that implementing this plan right now, or approving the plan, is a good thing. Implementation is going to take money. We don't have a whole lot. So,
Right.
you know, I'm ready to go.
Good. Any other discussion?
Well, the only other thing I was going to say, I didn't mean to hold the process up by any means. I just wanted to make sure that we were looking down the road simultaneously while we were trying to get the plan into motion. It was really my intent.
Okay, that's clear now. This is a tremendous Christmas present for the citizens of Grand Traverse County.
Absolutely.
This is a $15,000 gift that Mr. Clark and R. Clark Associates have made. I've circulated a Christmas card to send to Russ. We probably ought to send one to his company, too. But this is a very nice early Christmas present for the community, and I speak on behalf of all the commissioners when I say we want to, like Jason, to communicate our sincere thanks to Russ, who is in where, Louisville?
He's based out of
Bowling Green.
Bowling Green.
Bowling
doing the
Green.
majority of his work out of Mammoth Cave.
Mammoth
Oh.
Cave Park.
Cool. Well, there is a motion on the floor to approve this, and it's supported. Do you want further discussion, or are we ready for a vote? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of adopting the motion by Christine, supported by Kevin, that the Parks and Recreation Commission approve the December 2011 Civic Center Master Plan as presented, but subject to the language to be added regarding the pickleball courts, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Implementation, right. Christine is right, it takes money, but due to the generosity of Mr. Clark, we do have $15,000. So that's not a sharp stick in the eye. That's something that we can start to work with. And I wanted to put this on the agenda to kick it around a little with you, both as to the 15 grand, but also as to ideas for raising other money. We're not going to obviously get it from the general fund of Grand Traverse County, at least not immediately. So what are your thoughts, Christine?
Well, I don't have any specific thoughts. I do know that, basically, the reason I raised my hand was I want the public to be aware that the county board has already approved the $15,000 expenditure. And I know that I did speak, to former Commissioner Clark and asked him what his preference would be, and it would be the removal of the fence. So seeing as how this would not be occurring without his generosity, I think that ought to be our first priority.
That's a very good point, and perhaps we could just ask Jason to discuss with facilities fence removal. I understand that there is some salvage value to the fencing. The city, when they removed the fence on the bayfront there, Dave Weston told me that they were able to get money on the resale of that. So, can you do that, Jason?
I can. I'm interested in this conversation, and I'll be taking notes during this conversation because it'll help me put together, as I mentioned, it'll help me put together some type of implementation plan.
Perfect.
Figuring out how to best leverage that $15,000 we have set aside, and how, whether that's best leveraged into matching grants, whether it's, so I'm interested in this conversation. I'll be taking
Good.
notes.
Yeah, I think what my thoughts are is after we share our ideas with each other and with Jason, that in the meeting in January, if possible, after Russ's cost estimates are received, that Jason come back with at least a preliminary implementation plan or a first stage implementation plan that are his suggestions for how we might be able to attack some of these projects. Kevin?
Thanks, Mr. Chair. That was my concern, following up on Dr. Leapsight's facts that he presented relative to T-Bay's Survey Monkey. Perhaps we could look at some of those priorities. Obviously, our next step in implementation is prioritizing the implementation. We've already got some consensus on number one priority being the fencing. Perhaps we could look at the T-Bay's survey and glean other priorities from that or other glaring discrepancies and still incorporate that into the master plan. So that's one of my points. We've got to prioritize, how we're what we're gonna spend our money on. And then the flip side of that is I want to light a fire under how do we get grants and fundraising cooking. And my solution is the DNRE plan really has to get cooking here.
Yes, I think that we have $15,000, so we should prioritize with that.
Yeah.
But my thought is that we have various sources of funds. We have potential for friends groups. We have the potential for land trust fund grants if we get our DNRE plan in order. That's another source. We don't need to absolutely prioritize. This is what we want first, because we have different pots of money, and as they become available, we may be able to, if a pot of money becomes available to do the sixth priority thing, well, let's do it. So one of my thoughts would be to try to organize the Friends of Pickleball. the Friends of Child Equipment. I think there is a Friends group, isn't there, for skateboarding?
There was in the past, it hasn't met in several years, and at this
Okay.
point, I would say it's pretty well defunct.
All right. But as with Easling Pool was constructed with private money, with donations. It wasn't
Yes.
constructed with public funds. It's being operated substantially by public funds, but it was constructed, I believe, with community funds that were donated. So that might be a way to attack some of these projects. But I think Kevin's right. The big ones, like the taking or looking at expansion of the Civic Center to Garfield, that would take large amounts of money, perhaps available through the trust fund.
That's what I was going to mention. Thanks, Mr. Chair. The potential, it's just a hypothetical now, the acquisition of the Oak Park School, as well as the TART Trail connectors is a very good candidate to be considered granting as a result of the updated DNRE plan. And then we've also got to work through whether or not the pickleball courts go on the old tennis courts. Before we get ahead of ourselves, we got to find a new home for facilities, So there's some sequencing of events that has to go on.
Good. Other thoughts and ideas on implementation strategy? Okay. Jason, do you have any questions of us?
Not at this point.
All right, great. With your permission, then, we will move along to the approval of the Rotary Charities Organizational Capacity Building Grant.
Yes, this is the Rotary, the Organizational Capacity Building Grant from Rotary Charities is something that I actually came across in an attempt to find a consultant or find a group that would help pay for creating the business plans for Power Island, Twin Lakes, and the remainder of our parks. In order to receive or be considered for those grants, our board, it's a requirement of North Sky Nonprofit Network that our board go through a board capacity assessment. And one of the things that, in talking with North Sky, from my perspective, this is something that could be very beneficial to our board, although it will require a time commitment from our board members. One of the items that the board capacity assessment is a facilitated discussion where strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of the board as a whole are taken into consideration. I want to stress that it's the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats of our board as a whole. It's not strengths, weaknesses, et cetera, of each individual member of the board. This process is not a process intended to divide commissions. It's a process intended to bring commissions together, identify needs that commission may have, and then find help with training and how that commission can move forward. So once this process is completed, and that process will take, I think I may have given some wrong information. I think I talked about 3 90-minute meetings. I was wrong in that. There are only 2 meetings, but there are 2 3-hour meetings stretched over the course of approximately a month. I did talk with North Sky, and the ability for our commission to do that on a Saturday or Sunday, or in an evening or during the day, they're pretty wide open from our scheduling perspective. Once our board goes through that board capacity assessment, we have the opportunity then to move to phase 2 of this grant, which is having our board, working with North Sky to find a consultant to help create those business plans as we discussed in our former strategic plan for Power Island, Twin Lakes, and then on to the rest of our parks. In order for this grant to be fully approved by Rotary Charities, it does need to have approval from our Parks and Recreation Commission. My intent for this process, if approved, will begin in January or February, and hopefully we'll have a stronger board when that's done. That may help out, and it may be a very inclusionary process for our 4 new commissioners of the board, and move forward with a different outlook, and quite possibly being very close to the possibility of a new strategic plan for our commission. So this is a great opportunity for our commission to come together. It's a requirement for us to receive grant funding to write these, to create new business plans for our parks, and I think this is a great opportunity for us to rely on our local nonprofit network to make this happen. So based on that, I would recommend that the Parks and Rec Commission approve the application to Rotary Charities for a board capacity assessment grant. Oh, our investment is $1,250 to be leveraged into a $9,250 grant.
I'm encouraged that when Jason said a commitment of 2 3-hour meetings, Carl didn't fall off of his chair and say,
He didn't run out of the room.
and the rest of the
He's getting a little
commissioners.
antsy, though.
I mean, that's, we thought it was 3 90-minute
Correct.
ones, but I'll be the first to say, I am not looking forward to a 3-hour meeting, but
Oh, you are too. Mr. President.
yes.
I'd like to make a motion that the Parks and Recreation Commission apply for an organizational capacity building grant through Rotary Charities and participates in a board capacity assessment as part of the granting process.
Is there support? Support by Karstens, moved by Dorier. Discussion.
I have a question.
Chris?
And perhaps well, sometimes I have an understanding problem, or I didn't hear it correctly. And please keep in mind, I'm deaf in one ear. Do I understand that if we agree to this, Jason, that we will get grant funding to write our business plans?
Correct. Phase one.
That's an easy sell.
Phase one is approximately $3,000 of that $9,250, and that's associated with the board capacity assessment. The remaining funds, so $6,250, then go to phase 2 of the granting process, which is development of the business plan.
Okay.
And North Sky is an organization that was created by Rotary and is, the people are appointed by Rotary Charities?
Correct.
They're impressive. I've been to a lot of the meetings that they've been connected also with the Grand Vision networks and things like that.
One of the things that I'd like to bring up, and I think I may have glazed over this quickly, once our board is done with this board capacity assessment, our board could be, and depending on the outcome of that board capacity assessment, could be very close to the opportunity to develop a new strategic plan. And one of the way I wrote this grant is when our board is done with that board capacity assessment, if our board chooses, they can go into what may require maybe just one more session. I don't know. It's going to depend on the outcome of that board capacity assessment to draft a new strategic plan. Then the remainder of the money would be to develop those business plans. So our board will have that option at the end of the board capacity assessment.
Kevin?
Jason, could you help me? Is there a cost estimate on what it might cost to create these business plans? You said we'll have roughly $6,000 left to do business plan and/or strategic plans. So what would be the cost to do business plans?
My intent is to do them for $6,250.
And then that will leave nothing for strategic plans.
That's something that the board capacity assessment has to happen first. So depending on where our board is at that point, after that assessment, then that's something I'll work with North Sky to determine whether we have the funding there to do the strategic plan. If our board is so adamant that, wow, we understand that if this board believes that they need a strategic plan after that, and that then becomes a greater priority than the business plans, I'm just saying our board has the opportunity to reprioritize if it would like at the end of that board capacity assessment.
Allow me to rephrase. If we move into the strategic plan right after the assessment, are we robbing some of the money for the business plans?
And I'm not trying to be cryptic. What I'm saying is, depending on the outcome of those board capacity assessments,
Yeah.
will determine how much of that block of money we've utilized.
Okay. And then so we've got a block, and with that block, we can spend it on business plans and strategic planning. And you
Correct.
think business plans could be completed for roughly $6,000?
It's my hope so, yes.
Okay.
For the 2 parks.
Yep.
Correct.
Gary?
I'm a little confused with something. You're using the term board and we're a commission. Are you using them interchangeably
I am-
in this conversation?
For this conversation, I'm using them interchangeably, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Bill's made a motion, Bob's supported it. Are there any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
I'm excited to let our commission know, based on that approval, we received this grant yesterday. So, we were approved for this grant pending approval from the commission. So, there's some results, commissioners. We just received a $8,000 grant.
Great.
Okay, we are going on to the park rules additions.
At our last
Jason, do you want to?
Sure. At our last Parks and Recreation Rules Committee meeting, the Rules Committee discussed 3 items they talked about in section, your Parks and Recreation rules are identified are on page 25. And I'll just run through these items. In section 2, item number 6, which is at the very bottom of page 25, the Rules Committee voted to add without permission of the director to that rule. So you can very faintly see that was highlighted. So those 5 words were added to rule number 6. Section number 2, number 18, we've seen an increase in the number of motor-driven and wheeled vehicles operating on what are established as non-motorized trails, but we did not have a rule to prevent that at Twin Lakes. So I asked the Rules Committee to add rule number 18, which is making it unlawful to operate a motor-driven tractor or wheeled vehicle of any kind or nature anywhere except on the tractor wheeled vehicle or designated parking areas or other areas posted for such operation. Exceptions to this rule include the following: emergency vehicles, maintenance vehicles owned by Grand Traverse County or their contractors, vehicles that have received written authorization from the Parks and Recreation Director and/or Facilities Management Director. And you guys actually have, this is the wrong copy of these. There's also a stipulation in there that people who are operating wheeled vehicles in accordance with ADA compliance, that is item D.
Jason, I think that there's a better description of the suggested Rule 18 in your memorandum.
Yes, there it is. I'm sorry.
Than the text of the rules.
So the exceptions to the rule would read as follows: A, emergency vehicles; B, maintenance vehicles owned by Grand Traverse County or their contractors; C, vehicles to assist people with disabilities pursuant to the Americans with Disabilities Act; and D, vehicles that have received written authorization from Parks and Recreation Director and/or Facilities Management Director. These items were, and the final thing was we removed the word "his" from section 3, so it now reads enforcement officers, Grand Traverse County Sheriff and deputies versus and his deputies are authorized as local enforcement officials for this ordinance. Those are the 3 changes to the rules. These have been approved by the Rules Committee and they have been approved by Bob Cooney. And I would recommend that this Parks and Recreation Commission approve those amendments to the general park rules.
Christine?
I've got a question first of all, just so you know, I'm not going to support this, but I do have a question. The Civic Center really is not under the authority of Grand Traverse County Sheriff's Department. They're basically, when we have a problem at the Civic Center, and Jason can correct me if I'm wrong, we call the city police. So I'm just offering that as to maybe if we want to recognize that, but that's it.
Can you share with us your reason for not supporting these?
We've got, we have kids that sometimes have little, what do you call them?
Little go-karts.
They're not three-wheelers or go-karts or whatever, you know. how damaging are they going to be? And I think that there are areas where that's appropriate, and we haven't looked at that, and I'm not willing to ban them from our parks. We've got parks that have, you know, a lot of acreage, and so that's basically all.
Well, since you're the chairman of the Rules Committee, would you like to have this sent back to the Rules Committee for further analysis?
And, well, I just think that we ought to take a look at that. You know, I was the one that brought up the ADA stuff during our Rules Committee meeting. That occurred to me. This occurred to me after, you know, after reading the packet, and that's the only reason. I just think there are areas where we can accommodate kids on their go-karts, et cetera. I don't know that that's a fact, but for that reason alone, I would not approve this at this time.
Bill?
I just, when I read this, I don't think it absolutely prohibits what you're talking about. It's anywhere except on tractor wheeled, wait a minute.
I think there's a couple of typos there, Bill. In the first line, tracked or wheeled should be struck. In the second line, tracked or wheeled vehicles or should be struck. So it reads,
Except on a designated parking, wait a minute, anywhere except,
on designated parking areas or
Or
other
other-
areas posted for such operation.
so, well, all this is saying is you can't use these vehicles in areas where we say you can't use these vehicles. That's what I think it says. It's not very worded very well.
Is this like at the Nature Education Reserve? I know that there are certain areas they definitely don't want any bicycles, but there are other areas on the Education Nature Reserve that allow people to go through it on a bicycle, but they
Well,
don't.
this is just dealing with motorized vehicles,
Correct.
not bikes.
Yeah, but he's using that as an example.
Oh, okay.
And it applies to every Grand Traverse County park.
Is that
Well,
correct, Jason?
I don't see any problem with, I think that's a good rule for motorized vehicles.
And that is correct.
Okay, so there is nowhere
With
where
the,
it's authorized.
with the exception of areas authorized by myself or facilities management, we do have an issue. There is, when we acquired the Maple Bay property, there's an easement that was granted to the owners of the Homeowners Association of Orchard Shores that allows golf carts to travel across part of our property in order to get down to the beach.
Is it posted to that effect?
It's not posted yet because we didn't have any of these rules approved. Once these rules are approved, at that point, it will be posted, yes. And that's a situation where I would give them authorization to operate their vehicles through our park, because there's an easement that exists. What we're seeing is, we see this issue at Twin Lakes, and that's really what stirred this controversy. There's an entrance to the south that would be hard for us unless we fenced off the entire park. Maybe we can move the Civic Center fence out there. Unless we fenced off the north end of the park, it's going to be pretty hard for us to prevent vehicles to be operating on those trails. Trails are predominantly for walking and walking, running, etc. But our caretaker out there has witnessed 4x4 trucks driving on these paths. So it's a significant issue. There are pathways in Maple Bay near the beach that people historically have ridden dirt bikes across, and four-wheelers and other ATVs. This rule we could prevent that from happening, or make it unlawful for that to happen. And that's really where we're seeing this issue.
Hoosier Valley, you have a lot of places that are perfect examples of the damage that can occur from four-wheelers that tear up, so that on the hillside you have tremendous amounts of erosion. And so so they can be really problematic.
And I think, and the people on the Rules Committee, Harry and Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, we certainly didn't, we asked because we didn't want to prohibit snowmobiles in any appropriate or existing snowmobile trail. And I think, Jason, you indicated there are no existing snowmobile trails on any of these parks, and there's no plan for snowmobile trails, and it would not be appropriate to have snowmobiles on the parks as is.
That is correct.
Chair, comment on that. A snowmobile's a tracked vehicle, not a wheeled vehicle. And we talked about wheeled vehicles, sir.
No, we struck that,
It's,
we just talked about motor-driven vehicles.
Any kind.
Just any motor-driven vehicles.
Correct.
Well, that would pose a problem because we have two different kinds. We have wheel or non-wheel, and, I mean, tracked or wheel. And,
Driven vehicles.
A lot of the trails where they don't want them are where people walk or cross-country ski and things like that.
Absolutely.
And so, and there's certainly, on all of the ski trails that I've been on, they have signs up prohibiting snowmobilers. They have special trails for snowmobilers, and so,
Lots of them.
pardon?
Lots of, that's the point, is there's plenty of opportunity in this area to go somewhere on state land.
Right.
With your motorized vehicles.
Right.
There's thousands and thousands of acres and miles of trails. So I think this is a good rule.
Christine?
Well, a kid on a bicycle that's got a lawnmower motor attached to it's a motorized vehicle. A kid that builds a go-kart with dad and puts a little tiny motor on it, it's a motorized vehicle. I'm in complete agreement, Jason, that a 4x4 should be banned, but I didn't think of that at the time. I thought of it after I read the packet, and therefore I'm going to not be in favor of this. That's it.
Well, could we have a motion to approve the amendments to the general park rules and submit Rule 18 back to the Rules Committee for further discussion? Adopt it, so it's in effect, but have the Rules Committee further look at these children's vehicles.
so move.
Moved by Leapsight. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Karstens. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
Well, we don't have to have a roll call, do we? No, okay, all right. Motion carries. All right. So you'll see that's on the agenda, Jason, for the next Rules Committee?
that will be held January 17th
All right.
with our current, I guess maybe that's a discussion that we should have. Should we have that with our current?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Second public comment. Okay. Notices and commissioner comments. Harry.
I wanted to report that I went on over to T-Bays to their board meeting and everything. And it was very well received there. They're really quite a group once that I got to meet them and listen to what they were talking about. One big concern that they had right up front was that there's not enough places for people to stay. They have events and things up here, and they try to do it off-season to get enough hotel, motel rooms, and they can't find enough in this area, and it's really getting to be a bind for them. And I thought, well, geez, if it gets to be a bind for them, it must be some kind of a bind for us, too, because there may be, we're starting winter activities and other things up here also. So I don't know what the total answer is. I do know that there's a lack of space. Some of the other further things that they had talked about, they was very, very glad to take and see me, because I was the first one in quite a while to show up over there and actually attend one of their meetings. And they said if I ever wanted to come back, I was perfectly welcome to do that. I don't know what capacity, but at this stage, but But that's the way they left that. I give to Jason the monkey survey that they talked about at great lengths, about where that they were at and where they had a beautiful strategic plan in place. I don't know if I've got that with me or not, but it would be, while we're working our strategic plan, we might want to take and flip through some of the points and some of the things they covered in there might be of interest to us. The other thing was that I noticed about them was that they don't have financial problems. That everything that they're doing, they've paid all their bills for the year and got money left over. I was flabbergasted. I mean, that's how well run they are over there. And there was an issue that come on up, of course, for their bylaws and things like that. You know, they're going to have to look into that and handle that somewhere down the road. The other thing was that they talked about, I felt that we had, with this $1 lease, that we had given them a gold brick worth an awful lot of money for where they really have taken it, because they were really talking tens of thousands of dollars in revenues and things of where they're operating. They was looking at putting up some buildings and some other things over on the property over there where they operate. They shut down their building in town. They had a leased building where they had some indoor activities that did not pan out, so they shut that down. And some of the winter activities that they had shut down also. So they were very, very quick to move quickly when something wasn't quite materializing how they envisioned it. I thought that was very good. Probably the only real negative thing was that they're about 3.5-hour meetings. Wow, woo. But other than that, they're a group that we should stay really very, very tight with, because some of the leadership over there is very, very unique. And some of the things that they come up with. So.
Well, good. They provide a wonderful recreational resource for this community, and it's all volunteer, isn't it?
Yep.
They have a few paid staff.
They have paid staff? Mm-hmm. That's great.
I think they only have a very, very small staff of 2 or 3 people there that handle all the other backside of everything.
Any other commissioner comments?
Move to adjourn?
I just wanted to let you know that Kevin and Chris and myself had lunch with Larry Inman and Larry Fleece, and Kevin is the vice president, me as the president, and Christine as the liaison. And it was a really good lunch. Larry Fleece is the vice chair of the county board, and Larry Inman is the chairman of the county board. And we're going to try to do that, and they wanted to try to do that quarterly, to continue the dialogue, continue the communication that's ongoing. We told them about the Civic Center master plan and a lot of the other things that we're cooking over here. They were very supportive, I believe, of this board. While at times they have the right to disagree with what we do or don't do, I think in general they acknowledge that we're doing a lot of work for the county, and they think you guys are doing a good job. Okay. Got a motion to adjourn?
Yes, you do.
Is there support?
I support.
It's supported by McKellier. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned. You can go to men's night, except you, Christine, and you.
By the way, to everybody on the board, it's been nice.